Hello guys and welcome back to my channel, and today over here we will be discussing another important question on design pattern of Java, and that is the strategy design pattern. So in our last few videos over there we have discussed some of the important other design patterns such as singleton design pattern, factory design pattern, observer design pattern and many more. And today over here we will be discussing the strategy design pattern. So without wasting much time, let's start with discussing this design pattern because this is also one of the most commonly asked design pattern during your technical interview. So without wasting much time, let's get started. But before going into the theoretical aspect of this design pattern and before we start with the coding aspect, let's first understand that what is the real-time use case of this strategy design pattern, so that it will be very useful for you to understand as well as it will be useful to you to explain it to your interviewer. So without wasting much time, let's take the real-time example of the strategy design pattern and let's discuss about it. So you must be wondering that to explain a simple design pattern, that is the strategy design pattern, why I am actually buying an Apple Watch over here. Because of the fact the entire concept of the strategy design pattern lies on the payment gateway of a particular website. And if you understand that how a payment gateway works over here, it will be damn easy for you to understand this design pattern. So over here you can see in this page, we are in the final page of our Myntra application, where I have placed an order of an Apple Watch which cost about 16,900. But over here you can see on this payment gateway, that is on the last page of our order, here you can see it is giving me the provision to choose few of the modes of payment, which means that I can pay this desired amount with few of the alternatives such as like with the help of a credit card or debit card, with the help of Google Pay or Phone Pay, or by using some of the other payment gateway method that are available over here. So if you understand in detail over here, you can see that the final goal or the final motive of this page is nothing but to make the payment, but to collect the money from the customer, which is the final objective. The application is giving us few of the alternatives way of payment, and based on the way the user is selecting the way of payment, it will make a strategy of the payment, which means that if I select the debit or the credit card option over here, obviously the strategy or the way of payment will be different than if I pay by using the Google Pay. So this is the basic example of the strategy design pattern. So you can really get hundred of use case of this design pattern in some of the real world application. So as we will be discussing further, I will be giving much more relevant example of this strategy design pattern so that it will be easy for you to understand. So without wasting much time, let's go into the deep dive analysis of this design pattern and let's understand theoretically with example that how we should implement a design pattern something like that, and what are some other real-time use case of this design pattern. So let's first understand that what is the strategy design pattern. So the strategy design pattern comes under the behavioral design pattern. So in our last few videos over there, we have discussed many design patterns such as factory design pattern, singleton design pattern as well as observer design pattern. Among that, the factory and the singleton comes under the creational design pattern, and the observer design pattern comes under the behavioral design pattern. So first you have to understand that what is the difference between the creational design pattern and the behavioral design pattern. So the creational design pattern talks about how we can create an object differently, whereas the behavioral design pattern talks about the internal implementation of a particular design pattern. So it's quite trivial that since strategy design pattern comes under the behavioral design pattern, so the way we will be implementing the logic internally within this design pattern will differ between each and every strategy. So that is why it comes under the behavioral design pattern. So hope that makes sense to you guys. So in strategy design pattern, we create objects of different strategies, and based on the selection of the user on runtime, we change the strategy accordingly. So let's take one more example of the strategy design pattern so that it will be much more easy for you to understand the concept. So over here you can see the next example of the strategy design pattern is the Google Map. So if you know that on Google Map, to get a particular direction, the user first have to give the current location of point A, and after that he have to give the location B, and based on his selection that whether he want to go by bike or by car, Google Map compute the minimum shortest distance and then start calculating the total time of traversal between point A and point B. And if you have seen, in most of the cases, the traveling duration and the distance of point A and point B varies between each and every method of traveling that we are selecting on the application. So our Google Map is also following the concept of the strategy design pattern. So here you can see that how easily, with the help of this strategy design pattern, we can easily build such complex application over here. So hopefully this makes some sense that when to use a strategy design pattern and what is the real-time use case of this design pattern. So without wasting much time, let's write the algorithm by following this design pattern logic. And for that, we will be creating a payment gateway using the strategy design pattern. So to create a payment gateway using the strategy design pattern, over here you can see I have created an empty class called as strategy design pattern. And over here you can see I have a main block over here. So let's start with the implementation of a payment gateway using this design pattern. So the first thing that you have to do is, since we are doing a payment gateway, so the final objective of this application will be the payment. So we'll first create an interface called as payment. And within this payment gateway, we will be having two methods. One method will be doing the payment and one method will be collecting all the necessary information from the user. So over here, if you see on the Myntra app, here you can see based on the selection of the user, it will take the card detail and some of the other details from the user. So this will be one of the functionality, that is to get the user credentials and the user input based on the selection. And the number two is like, once the user provides with all the card details and everything, he should able to pay now, which means the final payment. And that is why over here within this payment method, we will be declaring two functions. Now since we are done with the simple basic concept of the payment, now let's place an order into our application. And to make an order into our application, I will just make a static class called as order, which will have a couple of details. Number one is the order ID, number two is the amount of the order, and number three the way or the mode of payment by which the user want to make the payment. So let's create a class called as order. So here you can see I have created a dummy class called as order, which have three attributes. Number one is the order ID, number two is the value of the product, and number three the method by which I want to make the payment. And within this order class, I will be making one more class which will be responsible for placing the order into our application. So we are done with the basic structure of our class. So the question is, have we implemented anything about the strategy design pattern? No. Till now we have not designed anything about the strategy design pattern. We just have initialized few of the attribute and the few of the class which will help us to design the flow of the strategy design pattern. Now from here we will be start with the implementation of the actual strategy design pattern. So over here, if you watch carefully into our gateway, there are different way or different strategy of making the payment. One by using a credit card or one by using the Google Pay. So over here also in our application, we will be doing the same thing. What we will be doing, we will be creating two strategy or the two method of the payment. One will be the debit card or the credit card payment, and another will be the Google Pay or the PayPal method of payment. So let's create a credit card method of payment. So I'll create a class over here. And within this class called as credit card, we will be implementing the payment gateway over here. So let's implement the payment gateway that we have just created over here. And as you know, this is the interface. So obviously we have to override the method accordingly. So here you can see within the credit card method, we have implemented the two methods, that is the collecting the details and do the payment method. Let's create one more class called as the Google Pay. And that's it. We are done with the two classes, that is the credit card and the Google Pay, which have implemented the payment gateway, which is our interface over here. Now let's see how strategically we will be changing our payments based on the user input. So let's first order a product from here. So for that, first I will be placing an order from our main method. So let's create an object of the order class. So let's take an example that I am ordering an Apple Watch over here, and the order ID of that is 1000. The product cost is 19,000 and the method of the payment will be decided on the runtime. So what we have to first do is we have to first create two objects of our two payment method, that is, one is the credit card and one is the Google Pay, and based on the user selection we will be passing that method object into our function. So let's see what I mean to say over here. So let's first create the two way of payment over here, one by using the credit card, that is CC, and another by using the Google Pay. So here you can see I have created two objects of the payment gateway. One is by using a credit card method and one by using the Google Pay method. And for example, the user want to select the Google Pay for this time. So over here we will be passing the Google Pay over here. So over here you can see we are passing the Google Pay payment object as an argument to our order class over here. And based on the method of payment received over here, it will call the payment gateway accordingly, which means that over here we will call method.collectPaymentDetails and method.doPayment, which means that over here we have decoupled the system, and this function, that is the place order method, is not at all concerned with the method of payment. It is just calling the payment gateway to make the payment. So hopefully this makes some sense to you guys. So let's first implement some of the internal implementation of this two payment gateway so that it will be easy for you to understand the total entire flow over here. So since this payment gateway deals about the credit card details, so let's provide a sysout accordingly. So since over here you can see this is a dummy function, so obviously we will be not bothering of making the payment to the bank. Rather we have implemented a dummy logic of collecting the information of the credit card and also making the payment over here. So similarly for the payment gateway for using the Google, we will be doing the same thing over here. So let's implement our internal implementation accordingly. And that's it, we are done with implementing our payment gateway using the strategy design pattern. So let's run this application and let's see how internally it is following the strategy design pattern over here. So let's first place the order over here. So what I will do, I will call the function that is place order, and let's run this code. And great, over here you can see as soon as I make the order over here, you can see the output. It's asking for the Google Pay phone number and the PIN, and once that are provided, you can see that the payment has been done successfully using the Google Pay method. So the only thing you can see that to change the strategy of the payment, the only thing that I have passed in our order function is an object of the Google Pay method. And as soon as I have passed an object of the Google Pay method, it have called all the methods of the Google Pay class over here. Let's now, instead of paying this using the Google Pay, let's provide the credit card details over here. So what I will be doing is, instead of changing the entire code, I will be just changing the method of payment to credit card. And let's run the function over here. And bingo, you can see the function place method is internally calling the credit card functionalities over here to accept the payment. So you can see how efficiently we have decoupled the entire payment gateway over here, and how strategically we are calling the internal implementation of each and every functionality over here. So strategy design pattern actually helps us to make the code much more simple and easy to understand. So you can see in future, if you want to change any underlying logic of the Google Pay class, for example, if you want to implement some security or anything, we do not have to change anything on the credit card method. So these two classes are quite segregated from each other and they are very loosely coupled. So I hope you guys have thoroughly understand the video of how strategically we are calling each and every function of our classes, passing the object over here. And this is the internal implementation of how we should follow a strategy design pattern for our application. So this might look something similar to our factory design pattern, but remember the fact the factory design pattern talks about creation of the object, whereas the strategy design pattern talks about the internal implementation of the strategy. So this is the real difference between these two design patterns. So hopefully you guys have thoroughly understand that video and also like this video, and if you have found this video useful, do not forget to like and share this video, and if you are new to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update from my side and you are always ready for your next interview. So without wasting much time, let's see you on our next video. Thank you. And if you are new to my channel, do not forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update from my side and you are always ready for your next update. Please bhai subscribe kar do.